All right, then, and Ira, of course, joins us now live from Berlin. Ira, what's the latest from the G20 Summit in Africa?
Well, if the first day of this Africa Partnership Conference was about African leaders showing their support for and their solidarity with Germany in this plan, the second day was really about kind of getting into the details of this very ambitious plan that Germany has laid out. And there were a number of panel discussions with titles like increasing private investment in Africa through various means, and really focusing in on some of the topics having to do with vocational training and things of that nature. But the topics that really would help to put this plan into actuality, which is, of course, a very big question right now. And one of the big areas that the panels and the people involved in this conference focused on was tax reform and trying to help reform some African economies where it's unclear sometimes how the governments can collect enough revenue. And there was the launch earlier today of something called the African Academy to fight tax and financial crime. So in this scenario, European governments as well as international financial institutions would work with African governments to try and help them increase tax revenue and to better keep track of the money there, which would, of course, be very important if investment in the continent is to increase. So a positive 2 days here, but of course, much work to be done to actually really put any of these measures that have been proposed into the real world.
Indeed. Let's talk about comments from the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel. She spoke of the need to invest in education as well as strengthening the role of girls and women. But when it comes to specific targets between the G20 and the African economies, what exactly do both parties need to meet in those areas?
Well, there aren't really, there's not too much in the way of specific targets with regards to incorporating and better incorporating women and girls into the framework of African economies. And of course, the situation varies widely from country to country. So it's hard to just provide a number and say, okay, all countries have to meet this standard in order to participate in the measures that we're offering here. But I think what they really tried to talk about at the conference today and yesterday was various programs that they are hoping will really sort of encourage women and girls on the African continents and African governments to really take advantage of. There was something today called E-Skills for Girls, a program that was just launched, and that looks at providing digital tools and ways for women to get much more involved in the tech economy. So learning things like coding and how to adapt to the new economy, because there is this fear that without some outside support in certain regions that women and girls could really be left behind, which would of course be tragic and would also make the goals that they've laid out in this conference that much more difficult to achieve.
Indeed. The German government saying it's lined up about 300 million euros of investments as part of this Compacts program with a range of African countries. Is all of this private capital, and what sort of investments are being targeted?
Well, the money that Germany has promised to the 3 African countries of Ghana, the Ivory Coast, and Tunisia is actually public money, and we don't know, one never knows exactly how these decisions are reached, but they have said that these countries are, in the words of the development minister Gerd Müller, reform champs, and that for this reason they have been selected to really sort of kick off this program. And this will go towards, specifically in these countries, vocational and employment training programs.